Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is the True Gender Ninja, and today we're going to be looking at some settings for creating a new world for your students. So we're going to start by simply making a new world. I'm going to come over here. So you're going to come over to the Create New here in the bottom corner, and you're going to go to, you have two options. You have New or Templates. New will automatically generate a world for you. Templates will give you some options. I generally recommend go to this. If your students are new to the program and new to Minecraft, I recommend the tutorial. It's pretty good. It does a decent job with informing them on how it works. This, though, is good if you're just doing builds or if you're going to follow my tutorials. I only ever use super flat worlds. However, if you do choose to do survival and stuff with your students, a normal world will just work fine. You can just click the new button. However, if you're going to follow my tutorials, I do recommend at least using this first. So I'm actually going to go into it and I'm going to do create new. So what this is going to give me options to do, it's going to give me the option to rename. I'm actually going to rename this one Ginger's World. Awesome. Now, if you're just doing this to follow my builds, then I recommend keeping this on creative. You have options of survival, creative, adventure. I don't think you'll ever need to do adventure, as that's for if you have someone who's really technologically advanced in Minecraft and generally knows how everything works. So stay away from that one, as it really limits the ability of the player. Survival is good for like if you're playing casually. However, in a classroom setting where it's meant to be building, I don't recommend it. So creative, where all you can do is build, is a lot better because you all get access to all the blocks that you don't get in survival right away. Also, to avoid having lots of monster spawns, I recommend having it on peaceful mode here for the difficulty so that you never get any bad mobs or monsters spawning. Easy, normal, and hard are generally meant for survival. All right. These are again survival-based stats, so settings, so not really needed. This is if you're making a multiplayer world, if you're going to choose host instead of playing. For this, it gives options to people. So like for instance, visitors, it allows people to just come in and out whenever they want. You got members, people who have are active in there, they can break things, whatever. This is how they are when they join. And then operators. So that's the different settings for those, sort of explains them. Permission levels. I've chosen the flat world type. So that's something you could be able to select in different non-templates. Now, the seed is what determines what shows up. But since we're playing just a grass world, it's not going to matter. Again, simulation distance doesn't really matter for you. However, here's the settings that are going to matter. If you are going to choose to play as a multiplayer with your students all playing together or with you, I recommend having friendly fire off so they can't hit each other in the game. The only instance where you would want to have this on, and just so you're aware, on means it's a light gray color like this, not the dark gray color like that. The only reason you want to have this on is if you're doing something more combat related, but I feel like that's very unlikely, so I recommend keeping this off. Show coordinates, I would recommend putting that on maybe so that it helps your students find where they're going, as it shows the X, Y, and Z coordinates of anywhere within the world, basically telling you how to get back to where you were. Fire spreads, I recommend turning off, as it will then make it so your kids' builds can't burn down or they can't set fire to other people's builds. Same reasons I would say TNT explodes off. The explodes is kind of self-explanatory in this instance, as this will allow players to, if it's on, it'll allow players to set off a block called TNT that will blow up its surroundings, allowing your students to then blow up everything around them as they wish. So I recommend having that off and having your students have it off even on a single player world, as it's a pretty big distraction to any form of building or task that you put in front of them. These other ones don't matter as much as they are more for single player based play, like mob loot, stuff like that. So don't have to worry about those. I recommend keeping them on. Immediate respawn will basically, instead of making them click a respawn button if they happen to die in the game, this will allow them to immediately spawn back in just as they were. So I usually turn that on, but again, that's up to you. It doesn't really matter in the end result. This is again shows how far away it'll respawn from where the original spawn. This doesn't matter if you're just doing builds, so leave that be. Now, here's some more important information. So, in cheats, we have activate cheats. This is situationally important depending on the level of your students. If your students are higher level, then they could actually make use of this for their builds and make it more effective and get more stuff done. For lower tier students who might not be very good at it, it doesn't matter. So I recommend leaving that on. So that means the light gray position. The next setting, always day. If you're doing strictly building, I recommend having it in the gray position as well. Because as long as it's in the gray position, it'll be on. It'll never be night. You'll never have issues with nighttime and the darkness. So you always have daytime. So it's perfect for building, especially if you're going to follow my tutorials. Having this on automatically flips the due daylight cycle. So since this is always going to be on, this doesn't really matter because it means you'll never have night and day. Keep inventory is mostly a survival thing. Essentially, in survival, when someone gets defeated through combat, whether against a monster or another player, they'll be able to keep whatever items they have. Because normally when you lose, all your items explode out of your character model. So the keep inventory option is not necessary if you're going to be following my creative tutorials. Mob spawning, again, doesn't really matter since you're going to be on peaceful, as mob spawning is more about like monsters spawning and stuff like that. Same with mob griefing, won't really matter. However, I recommend turning it off on the off chance that your student is in some form of survival mode, as the mob griefing allows certain creatures to blow up your area or steal blocks or do all sorts of stuff that your students may not want it to do. Another big one, entity shop loot, again, doesn't matter. The big one that I noticed some students that I worked with didn't really like was the weather cycle. So that means it can, if you're in the wrong biome, it could snow, it can rain. And when that happens, it usually gets a bit darker, so it's not pleasant. So I recommend having that off, as then it'll always be sunny as you're trying to have it always day. Command blocks. Now this, again, is just like the active cheats. It's an useful tool for your higher level students who have a higher base knowledge surrounding Minecraft. And it'll be really good for them as they can make use of it to make some pretty amazing things if they have the knowledge base. So definitely leave that on. And on the flip side, for someone who's less experienced, they won't know what to do with it, so it won't make a difference in the end. So that's why I recommend leaving command blocks on. Random tick speed is basically how fast things run in the game. Now, that is what I recommend for your settings for a new world for your students. Now, I hope you enjoy. Hop on. Have a lot of fun with them. Happy building. And I wish you a wonderful day.